everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye some unspun fiber. And we're going to do this by layering fiber and dye and fiber and dye and fiber and dye in a pot, but while things are hot. And I guess once we get started with that, you'll see. But the first thing I want to do is, find the knots on this Swish Roving. This fiber is 100% superwash merino wool, and I picked it specifically because it's superwash, so color should strike a little bit faster. Now, what I want to do, now that I untied those knots, is sort of arrange the two hanks together just a little bit. I'm also curious, and they're approximately the same length. Because when we start adding things to the pot, and I think I'll add the fiber dry, we'll add the fiber, some dye, some fiber, more dye, or maybe we'll start with the dye, but we're gonna do that kind of pattern, and I'm excited. I knew I wanted to use 6 different colors, and my plan is to start sort of at the darker end, even though the bright aqua isn't exactly dark, and then we'll build up. Now, are we gonna see all these colors as they are? Probably not. I think it's a lot more likely that we're gonna see some blending of the colors because of how I'm planning to add them. But what I don't know is if I should be using dry dye powders or if I should dissolve the dyes first. And there are some pros and cons to both of those approaches. If I add the dye powders on directly, even if I then come in with a spoon to dissolve it a bit, it is more likely to just sort of stay locally where I placed it. And we therefore could end up with more white left behind. Not guaranteed, but we could. If I were to do liquid dyes and pour it on, some of that, the force, I guess, of pouring the liquid in could push some of that dye through more layers, and maybe we would end up with more blending. All of this is just hypothesis at this point. I think I want to do this with dry powders. I believe I did something very similar to this a long time ago, and if I can find that video, I'll pop up some screenshots, but I think that we could end up with something really, really fun. And I don't know how long I'll want to wait in between adding each color. We'll sort of see how things go. And so I think since we're going to use the dry powder, I'm going to grab a skein of Stroll, which is 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. Pre-soak that with a little bit of acid and have that ready as a yarn mop so I can wipe any excess dye off of my gloved fingertips. And if you want to learn more about the Swish Roving or any other yarn I use in this video, I do have links and affiliate links down in the video description, and I may make a commission if you make purchases through one of my links. In my kettle, I have 16 cups of water, and I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of white vinegar. We can always add more acid if we need to. We'll sort of see how things are going. But I'm going to take this over to the stove, and we're going to start heating things up. Actually, you know how I said I was going to take our yarn mop, our Stroll, and soak it in some water with some acid? Well, why not use our dye bath? Plus, this could remove a tiny bit of liquid to help make sure we have space, but we can always add more liquid as is needed. Now, this is not a very long pre-soak at all, but should be enough so that we can get some fun colors to stick to this bonus skein we're gonna get from the video. And I'm gonna just have this yarn in an aluminum pan on the counter. Now, since we are gonna add dry dye powders to our dye bath, I will be putting on my deluxe rubber respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves while we're dealing with the dry dye powders. I'll see you once we heat up. We are at a boil, so I'm gonna reduce the temperature and then carefully bring over a section of fiber and put it in. And I can fluff it out a bit so we have sort of like a layer here. The first color is bright aqua. I am running a little bit low, it looks like. But let's speckle the color on. Hue-wise, this is going to be very similar to the teal green, with the exception that the teal green is obviously more pigmented and maybe not quite as bright. Okay, I took about 30 seconds to go wipe the dye off of my gloves onto the yarn mop. And again, I'm torn, but I think I'm going to help things along a little bit because, well, we could see that the color spread some. There are some areas where it's streaking and is a little darker. I'm not really seeing very much color in the water, which is a little encouraging, I'll be honest. Let's get a little bit more dye. Sort of sprinkling it on. It's okay if we end up with white. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Now, of all the colors that I picked for this project, I know peach blush can strike really quickly, but the others I don't really know. I mean, again, there's not very much color in the water, so I think I'm going to go ahead and add more fiber in now. And so what I'm doing is attempting to lay out a layer of color here. And you can see, right, that we're getting some color coming through here. And I have a pan in the back where I'm holding the rest of the fiber. But let's bring in our next color, which is the teal green. The bright aqua is a little bit of my exception for wanting to start with darker colors and then go to like lighter and brighter. I am attempting to add the dye more towards the center and to be a little bit away from the edges, at least a little bit. But you can tell that I went heavier this time than I had gone with the bright aqua. And in that bit of time that I went over to the yarn mop, I don't know, I guess I'll maybe speed that up a little bit. The pattern here looks so cool. Part of me wants to not touch it. And when I'm coming in and moving it, I am being very, very light-handed because I don't want to push this too much to the outside and to the bottom. It might go through a fair amount, it might not. But right now you can see we have a lot of color in here. So what I'm going to do now is wait before we add more fiber and more color. Let's wait 5 minutes and then we'll see where we are. So I will admit that I cheated a little bit because I did come and check and the color has struck. So yeah, so I did touch it. Okay, as I come over, I'm trying to layer the fiber in, and we may have some light patches and white patches left in some areas. One of the hanks may be more over one than the other, and that is all okay. Blued steel is a nice blue. It's not quite as dusty as the like purple color was in the photo, but I've used so much purple lately. I really wanted to use something that wasn't entirely purple, although watch, the colors will blend and we'll get purple. Now this can, depending on heat, break almost brown, but if that happens, we've got yellows and oranges coming in, so I'm not entirely worried. I do have to wonder, however, if a blued steel tangelo combination will be blue or bring in some purples. So far things seem to be working pretty well, especially because we have superwash fiber here. I think that if it were non-superwash, and it's possible that each color isn't going through each layer, I'm trying to not press too deep to push things too far down, but just spread it. And in fact, I can see some lightness over at the edge. But I think that the results could be completely different if I was doing non-superwash yarn versus the superwash. And I'm curious. All right, let's give it, I'll turn up the heat a tiny bit But let's give it a good couple of minutes and then we'll be back. Okay, we're bubbling a little bit, so I'm reducing the heat, but I see some teal poking through there, and that makes me really, really happy. Okay. We're adding more fiber, trying to not twist things too much. Obviously, there's some twist as we go around and around, but the thing that's kind of cool is that we're not seeing a ton of color come through our layer, which is good because that's what we want. And I actually think that my arbitrary decision to do 6 colors and divide things 6 times is working. All right, here's our tangelo. Now, I feel like the relationship between tangelo and peach blush is a little bit similar to the relationship between teal and bright aqua. One difference, though, is I think peach blush strikes really, really fast. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, where's my spoon? Oh, I'll pop the spoon in with the fiber. And so again, I am just very, very gently bringing this color through. I do feel like the peach blush is going to be a little bit more muted than this, but I don't think it's a problem. The one other thing I'm thinking about right now is, as I change colors, I make sure to, before I take off the gloves while we wait, I go and I rinse them so that way there's no dye on them. So they're dry when I go in the next container. But I know my inspiration photo, the colors are way more muted than what we're dyeing here. But that was just something I pulled to help me decide on 6 colors that I wanted to use. So it's okay if I don't match that. It's been 5 minutes, and yeah, it looks like most of that color is gone. Now, that doesn't mean that all the color is in our fiber and that there's none left. You know, it could mean that there could be some color left, but let's see, I'm going to rotate the pot because I'm trying to cover this. There we go, but still have that fiber be out. Okay, I'm trying to remember if I've used tangelo and peach blush together in a project. And I honestly don't know. But peach blush is a color that I love. And actually, tangelo is a color I used to use all the time. Okay, looking at them on the yarn mop, I don't think I'll be able to tell which one was which. Oh man, it's possible. It's possible that peach blush is like tangelo, but like with more filler. That's the problem with some pre-mixed colors, is that some of the pastels could just be lighter versions of some of the deeper colors. Now, we have some dark spots and some light coverage in here. I'm inclined to leave it. So the one thing I will say is that if you're aiming for a soft or more pastel color, that is a situation where you definitely would want to dissolve your dyes in liquid first before bringing them in. But anyway, and actually, I thought I was going to wait, but most of that color is in there. Let's bring over the rest of our fiber, and I think this layer is a little heavier. But in doing this, you'll see we are bringing in a little bit of color from that peach layer. Wow, I definitely thought I was going to need to add more acid, like way sooner. And I mean, we haven't yet, and I think we will want to add more water. But I'm so curious to see how these colors shift down through the layers. Okay, I'm bringing over the color Duckling now. The one other thing I don't know is how I'm going to get this out of the pot. That is something I did not entirely consider. I have a feeling I'm going to need to let the fiber cool off completely in here before I remove it. And the reason for that gut feeling is that I don't want to split the fiber or cause any problems while dealing with it. But this is so pretty. I've probably played with a color combination very similar to this a few times, but I thought that this would make really, really pretty fiber. And I love the differences we have in the depth of the color in some of these areas. I think it's really, really pretty because these speckles will bring dimension into the fiber, because when you spin it, they'll sort of blend everything together a little bit more. But now, goodness, a lot of the color is in the fiber. Let's go ahead and wait 5 minutes before we bring in more liquid. Oh, and our yarn mop is pretty and pigmented. We do have some yellow in here. It's just the teals are really the star of what happened in here. But I'm going to go ahead and steam set this for 30 minutes off camera. But I will see you shortly. All right. Let's see, we've got a little bit of yellow left. Okay, I'm going to bring over some more water. Here's about 500 milliliters of water with 2 tablespoons of white vinegar in it. And I think I'm going to add more water one more time. This time really trying to stick around the outside. All right, I want to just make sure, and I added warm water so that way it wouldn't shock the fiber, but I want to make sure there's enough volume in here so that we aren't in any danger of burning anything, which I don't think we are. We have plenty of liquid. It's just keeping an eye on things, right? So now I actually think what I'm going to do is, because I have another project I want to do over here, so I'm going to move this to another burner and heat for 25 more minutes. And I'll keep a close eye on it. That's because I have a bigger pot that I'm going to use to dye up a little bit more of my Halloween yarn. It's now been at least 30 minutes and things are warm and steamy, but I kind of want to take a peek. I push the spoon down. Well, all I can say is I see pink and I see blue. Eek! I'm excited because I didn't just like see like green or something. I don't know. This is kind of like a silly way to do things, but I'm really excited. All right, I'm gonna turn off the heat. And it's gonna take a couple hours to cool off, but that should also give things more time. I'm gonna leave the fiber in here to cool off completely, because if I went and got tongs to try to pull it out, I don't know, with it hot, it's just, even though this is superwash, I just worry too much that I'd break it because it could be too easy to pull fibers apart, and so I just don't wanna do that. So we're gonna wait, and I'll see you once it's cool and we'll take the fiber out. We'll wait till I can comfortably handle the fiber. It doesn't have to be completely room temperature. Let's start the washing with our yarn mop, mainly because I'm not expecting it to be a bleeder, but you never know. Let's add a little dish soap, and you can see how, quote, rough I am with this superwash sock yarn, and then how unbelievably gentle I plan to be with the roving. Oh gosh. I'm a little bit nervous. There's a reason why I really like dyeing braided roving, because having the fiber in some kind of crochet chain gives it a little bit of protection. But the good news is that there's no bleeding here on the mop. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this into the spin dryer. Oh, she's so cute. And I'm gonna fill up the basin with just a tiny bit of dish soap for us to add our roving into. All right, let's do this. I'm not wearing any gloves. Hopefully I don't regret that. Let's see if we can find the end. There we go. All right, I see a little bit of green on there. I don't know the best way to do this. Maybe I'll make some loops. Ooh, did you see that blue and orange? Ooh, this section is so pretty. All right, I thought I was gonna try to have it in sections, and then here I am not paying a lot of attention. And this is what I was afraid of. The weight of it, we have a little bit of fiber that's separated from the rest. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna hold on to that and we'll wash that last little bit on her own. I feel like I'm so focused on the fiber, I didn't even really get a chance to evaluate the color. I am really happy that, yeah, we have some colors going onto different sections, because I think that that's going to be fun and add some interesting blends into it when it's spun. But the thing I'm happiest about is that we have a bit of each of these colors distinct. They didn't all just blend into one color that's indistinguishable. And so for that, I am very, very happy. But the problem with superwash fiber, oh dear, is that it's not grippy. And so it's really, really easy for it to come apart. It doesn't sort of just stay connected to itself. So I'm gonna fill up this basin with the water running on the edge, so that way I can try to rinse out the soap. And so I'll come back in a minute. These colors are so fun though. Now I have to think about how I'm gonna bring this over to my spin dryer. And I think what I'm gonna do is try to drain off as much of the water as I can. See how like flowy this fiber is? The colors are gorgeous. I don't think there's koi that have teal, but something about some of the spotting of the orange color makes me think of koi a little bit. It's too bad everything is so kind of compacted together. I hope it doesn't fall apart into the spin dryer, but I'm gonna bring it over with the whole basin and we're gonna hope for the best. Okay, I'm gonna pick up the fiber. Can't really see it, but now I'll bring it over and kind of just plop it in. And usually I try to have it around the outside, but it just sort of is covering the bottom in a little pile. Okay, cross your fingers for me. I could let it go longer, but I'm a little nervous. Yeah. Bummer. I just wasn't confident in my ability to separate it. We'll have to evaluate it fully once things are dry. I'm going to take everything up to dry in a drying rack, and we'll be back in a couple of days to have some conclusions. The finished fiber is so unbelievably fluffy. But while I try to arrange it in a little bit of a neater way, I want to give a huge shout out to the ChemKnits Fiber patrons, including Karen Siegel, Jessica Parco, Bernadette Crum, Don Jans, Tamaris Fanes, and the rest of the names you see on the screen right now. Patreon is a wonderful way that you can help support the content here that I produce twice a week. And there's some fun perks in return. You get to help shape the direction of the Dyepot PS series and more. You can find more information over at patreon.com/ChemKnits. Patrons, thank you so much for all of your support. Hey, our fiber's in way better condition than I thought. There's just these two little pieces that can get spun back in. I think that one of the things I can really see here is the peach blush is definitely more pink. The tangelo is a little more orange, and I can see those differences there. There's remarkably not a lot of blending. The colors didn't spread very much at all. Now, blending can come in once we go ahead and spin the fiber. That's a place where the blending definitely can become more incorporated into things, but I think that it's really, really fun. I'm so curious how this would work on non-superwash fiber, and so if that's something you would like to see, please let me know down below. But now I'm gonna go ahead and just crochet up the fiber so we can see what it looks like in a braid. These braids are so pretty. It's funny how braided up this one looks like there's no twilight, but there really is some. It's just the way the braid is. And it's possible that this one has more, because for all things were together in the pot and I was adding the same amount of fiber each time, one of them could have been more on top than the other, and the colors weren't spreading that much. Now, is this technique better than doing, say, immersion in a steam pan? If I had laid out all the yarn at once and then added the dye on in different areas? Not necessarily. There isn't really a huge advantage to the silly technique that I tried today, except for the fact that it was fun and we didn't really know what was going to happen. And of course I picked a fiber that would absorb color really quickly, and so that meant we got less blending. But I'm curious what would happen with non-superwash. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. I post videos at least twice a week, and we have a lot of fun, and you really don't want to miss any of it. It is approaching the end of September now that I'm editing this, but by the time most of you are watching it, it's the end of October. And that means soon I'm going to start shipping out the 2024 ChemKnits Hanukkah yarn samplers. There may still be some available for pre-order, so you should go and check out the listings in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. Each night of Hanukkah, there'll be a new yarn dyeing video and a labeled wrapped mini skein of yarn dyed in that video for you to unwrap. And it's a fun way to treat yourself and see how I create lots of different colorways. And then you get to explore how those may knit or crochet up. I am so excited for you to see what I've created this year. Once again, you can find more details in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. And I'll have a link down in the video description. I really need to dye up some more fiber, and I'm excited to go back to some more traditional techniques with it. I don't know why I don't dye it more often, because I really do enjoy it, and each time I dye with it, I feel a little bit more confident. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Eek, I almost forgot the yarn mop, which actually shows all the colors really, really well from our Roving, which I've already put away, and then I realized I still had this. The funny thing though is that when you spin up the Roving, you're not going to have necessarily as short patches of color because things will sort of blend out a little bit more, but they definitely feel related, as they should. But anyway, thank you so much for watching.